All right. Hello, guys. Good evening. How is everybody's September the 1st going? Probably a little rough for some people. So I am here to give y'all some enlightenment. It's High Priestess Jamila. Hello. How y'all doing? I know y'all been missing me all day. Okay. I know y'all like, okay, Jamila, what's up with these little videos you uploading? Like, we need to hear from you. Seriously. So we're in the red with Mercury retrograde. We're in the red. We'll be all the way in the red until the 15th of September. And so I wanted to come and talk to y'all about some stuff that y'all need to know. And, you know, this particular Mercury retrograde, you guys are being encouraged to do all that you can to work through a lot of this stuff. Sometimes it's not always a one and done. Everybody wants everything to be one and done, especially if you're dealing with a spiritualist or a witch or a practitioner or a high priestess. Okay. Everybody always wants it to be something very easy and breezy and quick in one time, and it's not. Sometimes you have to work at it, but you can do shadow work with like a therapist, but I think that working with a high priestess or a spiritualist or a shaman or even a medium that knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing, I think that we have a tendency to offer more. Okay, no shade to the therapists out there. Okay, because I believe that therapists and psychiatrists, I believe that they have these supernatural powers. So I'm not saying to take my necessarily advice over theirs, but maybe if you're going to do both, it just depends on how much trauma you're dealing with, like the level of trauma, in this life, and then what you're dealing with from the past life. Okay. So during Mercury retrograde, specifically Mercury retrograde, but we've got like several planets that are in retrograde right now. Um, that is directly related, especially Mercury, for some reason, to your past life. And typically, stuff comes up. A lot of times, they will tell you, just like the standard stuff about Mercury retrograde, but really, it's actually a wonderful opportunity for you to reconcile things and fix things and do a lot of healing. So Mercury retrograde doesn't have to be a scary thing. It can actually be a good thing because it's a very powerful time for you to do reflection and for you to do your shadow work. Shadow work can be very difficult for some people because it's very fearful. So that's why you have to, I wouldn't say you have to, but it's recommended for you to be working with somebody, okay, and to have a support system of somebody that knows about that, about this type of thing. So your chart will give you clues of like your past life, but then also there is a calculator. There's calculators out there where you can see which planets were in retrograde when you were born. Well, you just have to know, like, well, most people know their date of birth, but it's good to know the time of birth and location, and then you can find out, um, you know, especially your north node, your true north node. Okay, so if your north node was in retrograde, okay. So let me get back to what I was saying. I'm sorry. Um, if your north node was in retrograde when you were born, it can be leading to a lot of different blockages, and then it also directly connects you to your past life. So a lot of y'all, like, I do think that you should do things like shutting down doorways to that. And you can definitely shut down those doorways, but sometimes you don't always want to just shut them down. Like, sometimes when I'm running into like sometimes when I'm running into some of these meditations and stuff, I'll see them and I'll be very leery of them, because just because there's bad karma and then karmics from those past lives doesn't mean that there's not good things that you can get from that. So you don't want to just go shutting down portals and altogether, and I think that that is where seeing somebody, or talking to somebody, with a shaman, like somebody that kind of can, like, not kind of, but can pick up on this stuff and intuitively know what's happening, especially when it comes to negative spirits and energies and even karmics. Okay. Now, what I see a lot of people doing, I see a lot of people trying to directly deal with their karmics. Stop doing that. Like, unless things get violent and very, very ugly, or if you have like a close karmic connection, like to your mother, your father, then you'll have to deal with those things. And depending on the circumstances, because there could be a past life connection. People are trying to directly deal with their karmics, and you want to be tempted to do that, but it's not always a good idea, because a lot of times your karmics, either they don't know, or either they may be possibly taking advantage of the situation. So you can't necessarily force your karmics to do shadow work. You can do certain things like make them look at themselves and what they're doing. But if you have a karmic that is like totally messed up subconsciously, unconsciously, and consciously, you can't force them. The only thing you can do is work on self and work on your situation when it is all said and done. And I've been sitting here meditating today with all sorts of spirits, and including Santa Muerta, which a lot of people don't realize that she is like phenomenal when it comes to past life stuff. Like, a lot of people think that Santa Muerta is all about death and destruction and da 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 da, but she's actually really about healing. She's about healing, and she is directly connected to past life stuff. So anyway, during Mercury retrograde, some of you are dealing with that. You just have to get a chart analysis by somebody that knows how to read your chart, and then you also got to go to somebody that you can trust. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to be careful. Okay. Um, but you need a chart analysis. These planets affect us. They're not just like the stars that you see in the constellations and all that. It's not. So that's what my planetary cleanses are about. That's why a lot of people come to me to get those, like planetary cleanses and cleanses. But you do have to be very specific as far as what you're doing. You don't really even have to know all of the details of those past lives unless you want to know. Uh, and unless there's something good that you can gain from it. But technically, your past life shouldn't be holding you back in this life. And I'm talking about not just one that may resonate in certain areas, but I'm talking about all of them can be. I feel like when Mercury goes into retrograde specifically, like all of them get to hitting us at once. And it can be very overwhelming. Okay. Um, So, you know the saying, it's not necessarily about what you do, but how you're doing it. And a lot of people, when they think about past life, like when I even start talking about this, like a lot of people, they start to kind of feel kind of sick or ill. So people are definitely afraid of shadow work. And I believe shadow work directly connects you to the past life. So this particular negative karma that a lot, not everybody, I actually have a past life deck, a past life deck, and an oracle deck actually. And it actually, some people don't have a past life. There's people that don't have one. Okay. But I believe that a lot of us do. And so, like, you do want to look at certain issues and things that you may struggle with, because you can actually check and see, like, not just Mercury, if Mercury was in retrograde, because um just to share a little bit about my personal chart, Mercury was actually direct when I was born. Okay. But there was a couple of planets that were in retrograde, Uranus and Neptune, which explains a lot. And then my north node, my true north node, was in retrograde when I was born. So there's certain things that you want to do, but you want to be careful when you're doing. Goodness gracious, that candle, wow, that candle is just going through it over there. It's so funny what that candle is doing. It involves my group. But you know a lot of the people that you don't get along with, or even people that hate you or people that you hate, there could be possibly like a karmic past life with that person. In fact, it's very likely, being that this planet has been here for so long. And some of y'all have met up at some point and you probably didn't get along. And, those things are sort of hidden in the subconscious and the unconscious. Okay. And those things are creating a lot of the warfare that you're experiencing. So you want to hit it up directly. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. It's not just with other people, but it may be karma from that past life that you may have had. Or it also could be, if a planet was in retrograde when you were born, which means that you could be carrying other people's karma, or just bad karma, period. So, this can affect your finances, it can affect your love life, it can affect your career, it can affect your health, your mental health, it can, and so that's why there's a lot of people right now that are just like, well, always during Mercury retrograde, people are just like, I have had it. And you start to see the world kind of go crazy. If you're lucky and blessed, you're able to take some time to meditate and to think about it. But if you look at the world, there's a lot of people, it's a lot of people in this world that they're either like suffering really, really bad in silence, or either they're out there acting cray cray with guns and knives and just shooting and killing people and acting cray cray. Okay. So you're very lucky if you're listening to this, because, you know, I didn't really start doing, well, when I first opened up my company, I did start to do shadow work, but I didn't start to really understand it until probably like maybe 2020. So, and I started, helping people. But see, it's something that I can't even force you to do. I can't force you, but there's a lot of people that, and so that's why I'm turning over a new leaf in my company. Like people that contact me with either relationship problems or problems with other people, that's the first thing that I look at is if it's a past life. And there's certain cards that will come up in your reading. Major arcana, the judgment card, major arcana, the death card, two of swords, 10 of cups inverted, the hermit inverted, and there's one more, six of cups, or either six of pentacles will come up. Um, and they'll either come up in the upright position or inverted. And so it tells you a lot. And a lot of the times it's very good to hit that up sometimes, Um, yeah, it's good to hit that up, like if that's playing a major, major role. Well, Kinsley's mommy, you know what? I don't mean to toot my own horn, but that's because you've been listening to me. No, I'm joking. How you doing this evening? No, I'm joking with you, sweetie. No, seriously though. Um, this is an excellent time for unblocking certain things like deep, deep, deep stuff, and then doing deep, deep, deep healing during this time. Okay. And so it's September the 1st, and we are definitely we are in the red zone right now. So that means what? That means that really honestly you really want to like keep calm, because things could get dangerous, things could get violent. People that either are dealing with, because everybody that's tripping out, flipping out, acting cray cray towards you, everybody that you're dealing with that with, they're not necessarily from your past life, but they're dealing with their past life stuff, but they're not actually dealing with it. Like they don't know, like they're in like the dark to it. So they're, and so I think especially a lot of y'all witches are being affected by this, which is why a lot of us are doing a lot of our defensive magic. Okay, a lot of our warding and stuff, because people that are flipping and dipping, and they need to look at themselves, they need to do shadow work, and they flipping out on you and attacking you, and it's like and then you got people that you may have a past life connection with, and that could possibly be your mother and your father. It could be your sister, it could be your brother, it could be your cousin, it could be your uncle, it could be anybody. Okay, it could be your boss, it could be your coworker. Okay, it could be your ex, it could be your current person. You and your current person possibly are in love in this life, but y'all had some bad history with each other. Okay, it could be anything. Okay, so this is a time where you are being highly encouraged to look at that. Okay, and whatever the circumstances are, we're still dealing with the energies of Saturn, which means that, I mean, you do want to take some time. A lot of people feel like they don't have time. They're in a hurry. I got to get over here. I got to get over there. Sometimes you have to sit down and think, and you have to be able to sit down and meditate. Okay. Now, I do that for a living, but you know what? It's not, it's not always it's not like I can't do everything for you. So that's why I'm turning over a new leaf. Like if you're not trying to do that self-reflection work, like I don't know. And a lot of my clients, shout out to my clients, they are definitely doing that. And then a couple of my apprentices too. Because they know that, what I'm talking about. But there's some of you guys are just like, it's like that devil. It's like the devil. I desire, desire. Okay, listen, you have to figure this out and you have to look inward. You have to look at yourself. And so it's very technical the way that it works, especially if you had planets that were in retrograde, because instead of it reflecting out to others, it's going inward. And a lot of people are kind of confused about that. You just have to, and so this is a part of the shadow work that I've actually been working with Lilith, because she is phenomenal in that. Her and Santa Martha, they are both phenomenal, especially when it comes to Lilith, when you're dealing with certain situations. Okay. Because when I explored my chart, I realized that Uranus was in retrograde when I was born, which is why I'm always talking about independence and individuality and freedom and having my own identity. And it just drives me nuts when people don't want to let me have that and people want to tell me who I am. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure I know me better than you. And it's almost like the friggin' Twilight Zone. It's like, what? Whoa, whoa. But then you realize that you have to actually like look at that and be like, okay, and then it's like that. It's like it's a form. It's definitely considered to be astral travel too. That's like very deep astral travel, when you start to look at your planets and stuff and how they're affecting you. So, it is something that I do feel that people need support for, because um and I feel like herbs are phenomenal with that, especially when it comes to keeping you calm. Things like hops, things like valerian root, things of that nature to keep you calm, because a lot of people, it will, like, I've noticed that people will go into, like, full panic mode, because it's like hyper speed and you get sped up, and it's like your heart starts pounding and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it can be scary. And I've gotten used to it. I've gotten used to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, I talk often about finding your north, and that's very important. Especially if your north node was in retrograde, and then you have to learn how to unblock your kundalini. Um, then you have to focus on kundalini is another thing, your kundalini, and a lot of us that are in our 30s and 40s, when we look at the younger generation, like, that's why sometimes the younger generation, they kind of have less of a hard time, but some of them don't. Some of them, it just depends on their Akashic records. It really does. And then it depends on their parents. Okay. So, you know, it's important for you to work through this stuff and understand how useful it can be. Because if you got a couple of kids running around here, it's important for you to, look at that, because that is gonna, I mean, whatever affects you is gonna affect them, depending on how old they are, and maybe it can affect them. Um, yeah. So Very, very important for you to look at stuff like that and not just like, because a lot of people like, well, I want this and I want that. Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to do shadow work to get that. And it is good to have a support system. It is good to do that. I wouldn't suggest doing shadow work if you're not ready to do it by yourself. I would not suggest that. Okay. So you can only make that difference for yourself, like, because there's a but I will tell you that you can help the people in your life, because a lot of people that are not spiritual, because everybody is just kind of used to you know monotheistic religion, and it doesn't really go deep into that. And so but you see what kind of stuff sometimes can go on. And I'm not dissing or downing anybody. Honestly, I'm not even in that mode. Like y'all just don't know. Like, oh my God, y'all. That that video that I put up, boy, it was a vibe, I'm telling you. And then it was just like slam bam crunch. And I was like, uh-oh. And it took me to a place. It took me to a place where I could. Hold on a second, y'all. I'm sorry. I got one of my clients texting me. I'm sorry, y'all. Give me a second because I want to finish this out. Okay. And it's really, and then, like, depending on what planets were in retrograde, like, it can really, really determine, like, your personality too. It can determine how you react to things. And so you just have to be very open and honest, and kind of have that self-love and forgive yourself for certain things. Hold on a second, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, yeah, I'm back. I think I'm hold on. Can y'all hear me? Y'all should be able to hear me. Okay. So whenever Mercury goes into retrograde, there are certain workings, like spiritual workings. Like, I've noticed that there are certain uh rituals and spells that you guys may want that will seem to be more powerful. So this is a really powerful time to do spell work. Okay, thank you, Kinsley's mommy. But I think that if you are really, really having a hard time, or you have like this unexplained anger or confusion, it's a good idea at to look like, really honestly, guys, seriously, it is so important for you to get to know yourself and to study your chart. So the way that I do chart analysis is very, very different from what you because I do offer chart analysis. Basically, you can tell me what the issue is, and then I can look at certain things in your chart and tell why you're experiencing that, and then some of those things may be ongoing even after you do cleanses, even with certain things, because it may be something that you have to work on doing during certain times, you know what I'm saying? And so but I look at it more from a personalized perspective. Like, for example, if you have really, really bad anxiety issues, now your moon can't really be in retrograde. I don't think that the sun and the moon, I don't think that the sun and the moon can go into retrograde, but the other planets can. And so if you had, like, for example, I believe that just based upon what I know about the planets, like, if you're okay, if your Mercury was in retrograde, or if your Mars was in retrograde, that could possibly, no, your Venus. If your Venus was in retrograde, I was about to say metrograde. If your Venus was in retrograde, that can cause a lot of fears and lack of confidence, which is, or anxiety. So, and to me, there are certain things that you can do, like, and I've been doing them for years, but I just didn't really start to correlate those things until I started studying more so with astrology. And I did I can't even talk today. I did start studying astrology in 2020. Like, I started to deep dive in it. And I believe that it's very important, so that's one thing to think about. And so some of the things that we do, like, when you're in, and it also directly points to your generational um bondages and stuff, because some people in your family, it's like a past life connection to that. So, I think that hitting it up directly is really it's very powerful for you to do that. And then also, there's certain things that you can do, certain stones that are directly connected, certain herbs that are directly connected. Um and I found the witch bottles to be so man, y'all, the witch bottles are phenomenal. Okay. uh because what it does is it pretty much creates an intent and it holds it there. Okay. But I gotta go, guys. I gotta call one of my clients. um Give me a second. What time is it? Oh yeah, girl. It's a bunch of them in retrograde. So, like, luckily, if you lucky, like, maybe none of those planets were in retrograde, but some of y'all, it's like the universe is doubling down on you. So definitely the universe is, hold on a second, I'm sorry. Okay. The universe is definitely doubling down on me, because both my Uranus and my Neptune, they were in retrograde when I was born. you know. Yeah, well, luckily my Jupiter wasn't in retrograde. I think that that's why I've always had, I think that's why I've always just in general had good luck. And then I was born on a Thursday, which that kind of like balanced things out for me, so that my life wasn't a total disaster. In fact, the work that I did for my group, like, that candle, I caught it on camera. It just all of a sudden just said poof and just became consumed in like 20 minutes. It was just like amazing. So I don't know. I may upload it publicly or I may just make it unlisted for the group. By the way, guys, if you're not in the group, you should get in. Okay. But so anyway, shameless plug for that. Okay. Cause I don't have no shame for offering y'all what I got to offer. Okay. So anyway, when is it gonna go into retrograde though, Kenzie's mommy? Because I want to be prepared for that one because I think that's gonna be amazing. Like I'm seeing all kinds of, oh wow, that's gonna be great. I'm talking about Tony the Tiger great. Jupiter in retrograde, oh wow. If bells are not ringing for you and going off for you, you must not have good relationship with the universe. Okay. But if you're having trouble or if your Jupiter was in retrograde, then you probably will. Or if you kind of don't pay attention to that, I believe that more problems, more people will solve their problems if they would pay more attention to astrology. I really do. So, and that's why you see a lot of us witches, we're into it. And then I couldn't help but be into it because my grandmother was into astrology. She wasn't into witchcraft, but she was definitely into astrology. Oh, nice. Ooh, thank you for letting me know that. That's very valuable information. Hmm. So anyway, pay attention to that kind of stuff, and don't get distracted because I don't believe that you only live once. I don't believe in that YOLO swag thing, like, oh, you only live once. I don't believe in that, but I do believe that the more you know, the better. So, information is gold, information is key. Okay. So, yeah, check that out. And I don't have like a chart analysis on the website, but I may put one on there because I'm very interested in these things because I'm one of them type of people. I can't help it. I like to solve problems. I do. I've always been that way. I can't help it. I can't help it. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's something wrong, I just feel like I need to fix it. So was it mine too? Mine was direct too, but my North Node was in retrograde. My Uranus was in retrograde, and my Neptune was in retrograde when I was born. So y'all know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm definitely gonna make some witch bottles for like a past life witch bottle. But see, you know what? When it comes to them witch bottles, you do really have to like work those bottles. Like just sitting them there is not really going to do you any good. So sometimes you want to work with them. Sometimes you want to actually like do stuff with them. Oh, your Venus was in retrograde? Oh, it was direct. Yeah, my Venus was direct. The only planets that I had in retrograde was my North Node, which that is a direct indication of a significant amount of karmic energy and like just but but then also that Uranus makes a lot of sense and so does Neptune because um Neptune, that's the planet of like illusions and sometimes fears and aspirations and dreams and then also Neptune can rule over your social life. And so I've never struggled in my social life. By the way, my Neptune is in Sagittarius, y'all. And that actually added to the issue that because y'all know how Sagittarius are. And Sagittarius would be like, you know what? Sagittarius would be like, hey, Let me send an evil bow and arrow to you. You know, Sagittarius is they real harsh. They can be real harsh when people mess with them. You know, they very unrelenting, and especially that being that mine uh was in retrograde. But I think it's also, you know, so you can lean more so towards the weaker aspect of that or the positive, but then also you want to work at it. So I do believe that Earth is very abundant in resources of healing for that, you know? Wow, Kinsley's mommy, that is interesting. Your North Node and Chiron was in retrograde. Interesting. And sometimes when you're looking at like standard readouts for that, like if I were to do a chart reading for you, I would actually see how that Chiron in retrograde is affecting you directly. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah. But what else was I gonna say about Neptune? I had when I was younger, I had agoraphobia when I was younger. And I went through some weird stuff. Like it was frightening. It was downright frightening. Oh my goddess. It was ooh, it was awful. And I remember that. But as I got older and started, you know, kind of learning how to ground myself and you know what I'm saying? Like, but it was really a trip. So, and it makes sense that my Neptune would be in retrograde as to why I went through, like, you know, and why I'm very easily, you know, can go off into, you know, not now because I've been, you know, dealing with certain stuff for so long, but, you know, but I used to have like, I don't want to say I was never a basket case, but the anxiety and it, you know, it was and it wasn't depression. It was just like, where am I? I was just like, oh God, I would look up at the sky and become overwhelmed. Like it was really a trip. This was back in my 20s before I got pregnant with my firstborn. So I'm talking about like 20 something years ago. I remember that it was really, really difficult. If I would have known what I know now back then, but you know, everything happens for a reason, you know. So okay, guys, anyway, I just wanted to come and tell you guys that I hope that this information helps you and feel free to contact me because I do provide meditation sessions for you guys for like if you're dealing with stuff like that. But right now, yeah, while we're in the red zone right now, um, it is important for you guys to look at that. Okay. I don't want to say I was a basket case, but like it was something that I kind of suffered in silence. It was weird because one time, like, I'm not even gonna get into that. It was almost like my spirit levitated out of my body, and I was just like, what? And I just felt far away. It was so weird. This was like over 20 years ago though, like, and I was just like, what the fuck? And it took me a minute because one time I actually like my spirit did something to where it kind of left my body spontaneously. One time it was like everybody in the family was there. It was like a Friday night at my grandmother's house, and it was so weird. And so those kind of experiences can be scary. And then when I was a kid, I suffered from sleep paralysis. I remember that when I was young, I had sleep paralysis, and that was a trip. That was another trip, like waking up and you can't move, and it's like you automatically hold your breath, and then when you start breathing, then you can move when you start breathing. It's very weird. Yeah, yeah, but I don't go through that anymore. Thank God. No, you know. But I don't know. Sleep paralysis for me as a child was almost like the experience of childbirth. You know how like you go through it, and then when it's over, it's like, oh, life is great. You know how it feels. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, child. You know how it feels like when you just have a baby, like you be going through all that pain, and then when the baby comes, you be like, oh, look at this. I just brought a new life into this world. So basically, like when I went through that as a kid, like it wasn't even anything that I talked about. Like I would go through it and then I would come out of it and be okay and just be like, hey, where's my dolls at? Ready to play with my dolls. So anyway, y'all, okay, y'all have a good evening. And I will see y'all later. Okay. All right, guys. Blessings. Bye bye.